Night. The night always has its own mystery, especially when you are alone in an almost empty high-rise building, where the city lights outside are only enough to draw strange shapes through the dusty glass windows. I am Min, and my job, in the quietest hours of the night, is to be the final custodian of that silence. A lone gatekeeper in this maze of concrete and steel. The main job is checking and cleaning, making sure everything is in order before dawn. Most floors are operational, bright and tidy. But there is one floor that always makes my spine chill every time I think about it. The 18th floor. The 18th floor is a scar in the heart of the building. An unfinished space, left behind midway through the renovation process. People say construction was halted because of budget issues, but sometimes, in the whispers of the daytime workers, I heard vaguely other, more vague and scary reasons. My supervisor, Mr. Hung, a dryly practical man, simply assigned me the task of checking this floor every night. With this wind and rain, he said, his voice monotonous, the unfinished upper floors can easily leak. You should go up and see if there's any water, otherwise all the supplies will be ruined. And so, night after night, I made the journey to the 18th floor. The old elevator creaked, taking me higher and higher, away from the light and warmth of the lower floors. Every time the heavy metal door opened on the 18th floor, I felt like I was entering another world, a cold dimension full of unnameable things. That night, like every other night, when I stepped out of the elevator, a sudden chill wrapped around my neck. It was not just the coldness of the stagnant air on the upper floors, but a purposeful coldness, like an invisible, moist hand touching the skin. The only fluorescent light in the hallway near the elevator flickered weakly, then went out. Darkness swallows everything. Silent. A thick, almost tangible silence. I turned on the handheld flashlight, an indispensable item during these inspection trips. Weak beams of light cut through the darkness, drawing ghostly images on the bare concrete walls and plastic tarps covering the unfinished windows. The 18th floor is a real maze. Large steel beams crisscross overhead like the skeleton of a giant monster. Half-built walls stood tall like lost tombstones. Electric wires dangled from the ceiling, sometimes grazing my hair if I wasn't careful, making me jump. The floor was covered in a fine layer of construction dust, capturing every mark, but usually only my shoe prints. I'm used to moving around in the dark, relying only on flashlights and the weak light coming in from the city through plastic tarps. But tonight, something was different. The feeling of being watched, which I usually tried to brush off as a product of a tired imagination, was stronger than ever. It was no longer vague, but like a tangible pressure weighing on the back of my neck. I began my inspection, sweeping the flashlight along the base of the wall, looking for wet streaks or suspicious cracks. My footsteps echoed strangely on the concrete, but there seemed to be another echo, lighter, slower, always following me at some distance. I stopped, held my breath and listened. Silence enveloped me again. Only the sound of my heart pounding in my chest and the gentle whistling of the wind through the gaps in the plastic tarp. It must be a hallucination, I told myself, trying to calm my breathing. Working too late, but my feet hesitated, not wanting to go deeper into the darkness. I kept going, trying to focus on work. The flashlight beam panned across a corner of the room, where coils of cables and water pipes lay scattered. In that moment, at the edge of the circle of light, I caught a glimpse of something, a silhouette. It stood still, unusually tall and thin, blending into the darkness of the concrete pillars. My heart seemed to stop beating. I quickly shined the flashlight straight at that spot. Nothing, just pillars and their shadows across the floor. My palms started to sweat. Have my eyes deceived me? Or is it just a play of light and shadow in this angular space? I stood still for a long moment, straining my eyes into the darkness, but nothing moved. I took a deep breath, trying to calm down. Let's hurry, I thought. Check it out and get out of here. I walked towards the end of the hallway, where there was a row of large windows completely covered with thick plastic tarps. The wind outside blew stronger, making the canvas flaps, creating continuous rustling sounds, sounding like someone's sigh. The city lights penetrated the opaque plastic, creating strange streaks of light on the dusty floor. That's when I saw them. Footprints. They are not mine. My shoe prints are smaller and have different soles. These footprints are larger, have strange shapes, and seem to be very new, clearly printed on the fine layer of dust. They formed a trail, starting in the middle of the hallway and leading straight to one of the canvas-covered windows. My scalp is numb. Who was here? Construction workers do not work at this time, and no one else is allowed up here except me and Mr. Hung. I slowly followed the footprints, my heart beating wildly. Every step I take feels like I weigh 1,000 pounds more. The flashlight beam in my hand trembled, creating rings of light that danced across the floor. The footprints stopped suddenly, a few meters from the window. They just disappeared, as if their creator had dissolved into thin air, or been lifted up. I swallowed hard, my throat feeling dry. I looked up at the plastic tarp in front of me. It is fluttering gently in the wind. And then I saw it. A very small movement, almost imperceptible, behind the plastic tarp, right where the footprints ended. It was as if someone or something was standing close on the other side, pressed against the canvas. A slight bulge rippled and then disappeared again. My brain screamed desperately, "No way! This is the 18th floor. There's nothing outside.
No balcony, no scaffolding.
Just air and space." But my eyes do not deceive me. The canvas rippled again, this time a little more clearly, at the level of a normal human eye. My breath caught. I was frozen in place, unable to move, unable to take my eyes off that damn canvas. Cold sweat poured down the back of my neck. Should I shine a light on it? Should I scream? Or should I turn around and run away? Morbid curiosity and primal fear tugged in my mind. In the end, fear won. I took a step back, then two, my eyes still glued to the canvas. At that moment, a light click sounded from the other side of the room. The sound was dry, like the sound of a small pebble falling on concrete. I was startled, turned around, and pointed my flashlight in the direction of the sound. Nothing, just darkness and silent building materials. But that noise broke my paralysis. Adrenaline flows. I can't think of anything else other than getting out of here. I turned around and started running. I ran towards the elevator, my own footsteps echoing off the empty walls, sounding like the footsteps of a pursuer right behind me. The hallway seemed to stretch endlessly. The plastic tarps fluttered like beckoning ghosts. I tripped over a coil of wire and almost fell. My heart was beating like it was about to burst out of my chest. My lungs burned. Finally, the dim red light of the elevator call button appeared ahead. I rushed forward, using my whole hand to repeatedly hit the cold metal button. It felt like every second of waiting was a century. I didn't dare look back, but I felt that coldness approaching, that invisible presence enveloping me. "Hurry! Hurry!" I whispered, my voice cracking with fear. A dry ting sounded, and the elevator door slowly opened. Never before have I seen the yellow light inside the elevator cabin so lovingly. I rushed inside, turned around and frantically pressed the door close button and the ground floor button. The door slowly closed, cutting off my view of the dark hallway of the 18th floor. But right before the door closed completely, in one last moment, I swore I saw it. At the end of the hallway, where my flashlight had just scanned, a tall black shadow was standing there, silently observing. There was no face, no features, just a solid black shape, swallowing the faint light around it. The elevator started going down. I leaned my back against the cabin wall, panting, my whole body trembling. Sweat soaked his shirt. My heart is still beating wildly. The image of that black shadow haunted my mind. What is it? When the elevator stopped on the ground floor, I almost fell out into the brightly lit main lobby. The other night guard, an elderly uncle, was reading the newspaper and looked up at me in surprise.
Mr. Min?
What's wrong? Your face is so pale. I wanted to tell him everything, wanted to scream about what I had seen and felt, but the words got stuck in my throat. I could only shake my head, trying to give a crooked smile. No, it's okay. Probably because I'm a bit tired. I don't dare tell. Who will believe me? They'll say I'm imagining it, that I'm working too hard. Like Mr. Hung said about that electrician. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, the image of the dark 18th floor and the tall black shadow appear. That cold feeling still seems to follow me, creeping into my bones. The next morning, I asked to see Mr. Hung. I didn't go into detail about what happened, just said that I felt unwell while working on the 18th floor and asked to be transferred to check other floors. Mr. Hung looked at me with suspicion, but perhaps seeing the panic that had not yet dissipated in my eyes, he agreed without asking much more. I never have to go back to the 18th floor again, but it was still there, hovering above, a cursed space in the heart of the building. Sometimes, on quiet nights, when standing on the street looking up at the building, I glanced at the windows on the 18th floor. They were just dark, empty glass panes. But I know, deep inside that darkness, something is still waiting. What is it? A ghost of some worker who died during construction? An older entity resides in the ground where the building was built? Or was it simply my own fear that took shape? I don't know, and maybe I don't want to know either. I just know that there are places in this world that are best not to set foot in, doors that are best left tightly closed, and shadows that are best not to be stirred. The 18th floor is one of those places. It has a presence of its own, a dark soul of its own. And even if the management completes the renovation, repaints the walls and installs bright light bulbs, I believe that the coldness, that feeling of being watched will never truly disappear. It was there, and it will always be there, hidden just behind a plastic tarp flapping in the wind, waiting for the next victim to dare look directly at it. The obsession with the 18th floor doesn't just stop at sleepless nights or sudden glances at that row of dark windows. It began to creep into my daily life in more subtle ways. Every strange noise in my small apartment, the creaking of the wooden floor, the sound of wind whistling through the window, makes me startled, making my heart beat faster. The darkness in the bedroom seemed thicker, and sometimes, in my half-awake state, I felt like someone was standing in the corner of the room, watching me. I tried to calm myself, telling myself that it was just an echo of my fear, that my mind was playing tricks on me. But the coldness I felt on the 18th floor seemed to have followed me home. There were nights when I woke up in the middle of the night, sweating profusely, with the distinct feeling that a cold hand had just touched my shoulder. I jumped up and looked around the dark room, but there was nothing. There is only silence and fear gnawing at the soul. I started learning about the history of the building, searching online, asking questions of people who had been working for a long time. Information is quite fragmentary. The building was built on an old plot of land that was once a slum and then an abandoned warehouse. There were vague rumors about unpleasant incidents that had happened in that area a long time ago, but nothing concrete. Regarding the construction of the current building, there were a few minor industrial accidents, but nothing recorded was serious enough to explain the haunting on the 18th floor. However, I found an old news item in a local online newspaper, talking about a worker who had mysteriously disappeared during the rough completion phase of the building, right on the top floors. The incident was not clarified and was quickly forgotten. Is that the electrician Mr. Hung mentioned? Or is it someone else? The news item did not specify the exact identity or location, but the thought of a man trapped, left behind in the very structure he was building, made me shudder. Is his soul still wandering on the 18th floor, looking for a way out, or resenting those who abandoned him? That thought only increased my insecurity. I started avoiding taking the elevator alone at night, even when just moving between finished floors. I always had the feeling that the elevator door might suddenly open on the 18th floor, even though I didn't press the button. Every time the elevator stopped at a certain floor, I held my breath, fearfully looking at the control panel, worried that the number 18 would light up. One evening, while cleaning on the 17th floor, right below that scary floor, I heard strange noises from the ceiling above. Not the sound of footsteps like last time, but the sound of dragging something heavy. Pull, stop, pull, stop. The sound was dry, harsh, echoing downwards. I stood still, listening. The noise lasted for a few minutes and then fell silent. I know it's from the 18th floor. No one is allowed up there at this hour. Should I report it? Or do you tell yourself that it's just the sound of water pipes, the sound of the building expanding? But that sound was too specific, too intentional. It felt like someone was moving furniture, or worse, dragging something, or someone. I decided not to report it. The fear of being ridiculed and considered paranoid is greater than the fear of what is happening up there. I just tried to finish my work as quickly as possible on the 17th floor and hurriedly left, not daring to look back at the ceiling. Strange events are not limited to the building. They started affecting my electronic devices. My phone sometimes automatically turns off, even though the battery is still full. The laptop occasionally displays strange characters on the screen before freezing. Maybe it's just a coincidence, the usual glitches. But in my confused state at that time, everything seemed to be connected to the 18th floor, to the unknown entity that was haunting it. It was as if that presence was reaching out, touching my life even when I was not in the building. I became pale, tired, and had dark circles under my eyes from lack of sleep. Colleagues began to notice a change. The night shift security guard asked me more questions, but I still didn't dare to confess. I'm afraid that if I speak out, I will make that fear more real, or worse, will attract it more attention. One night, I dreamed that I was back on the 18th floor. In the dream, the floor was no longer dark, but was illuminated by an eerie, pale green light. I'm standing in front of that plastic-covered window. This time, a large piece of the canvas was torn off. I looked outside. Instead of a cityscape at night, I only saw a deep, black void, as if the building was floating in the middle of nowhere. And then, from that void, a hand reached out. It was long, skinny, with bony, black fingers. That hand slowly approached me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run away, but my feet felt rooted to the floor. The hand touched my shoulder, cold as ice. I screamed and woke up, my heart beating wildly, my breathing rapid. My whole body was drenched in cold sweat. The dim light of the morning crept through the window. I can still feel the coldness on my shoulder, where the hand in my dream touched me. That dream was the last straw. I know I cannot continue to live in this fear. I need to do something, even if it's just to find some peace of mind. I decided to quit my job. This job as a janitor is not worth risking my sanity. On the last day of work, I tried to stay calm and complete all tasks. When I handed over the keys and walkie-talkie to Mr. Hung, I didn't say the real reason I quit. I just said I found a better job. Mr. Hung nodded, his face showing no emotion. Before leaving the building for the last time, I stopped in the main lobby and looked up at the floor signs. The number 18 is red like a dried blood stain. I took a deep breath, turned around and walked quickly out the door, without looking back. I left that building, but that building didn't seem to leave me. The sleepless nights still continued, although they were less frequent. Images of the 18th floor, the dark shadow, and the skeletal hand in my dreams still come back to haunt me from time to time. I found a new job, a regular day job in a small office. Life gradually gets back on track, but the psychological scars are still there. I'm still afraid of the dark, afraid of quiet spaces, afraid of being alone in tall buildings. Sometimes, when passing through the downtown area, I accidentally see the old building where I used to work. It still stands tall and proud in the sunlight. But to me, it is no longer a simple concrete and glass structure. It is a place containing dark secrets, a prison for a certain soul, or a portal to another world that I have accidentally opened. I wonder if anyone else has gone through what I went through on the 18th floor? Will the workers completing the project feel that presence? Or did it just choose me, a lonely, vulnerable gatekeeper in the dark? The answer will probably never be known, and maybe that's better. There are mysteries of this world that people should not try to understand. Tonight, as you are listening to the story, perhaps curled up in a warm blanket, try listening to the sounds around you. The sound of the wind whistling outside the window, the sound of the floor creaking, the sound of a ticking clock. Most of them have a reasonable explanation. But sometimes, just sometimes, in the silence between those sounds, you can hear a very soft whisper, or feel a sudden coldness across the back of your neck. Maybe it's just your imagination, or maybe There are things that are always lurking just at the edge of our awareness, waiting in the dark like the black shadow on the 18th floor, quietly observing and waiting,